I fully understand that people love Julian. That's why he was on the pod because he was great. That's the decision. Not every decision has to be explained to everybody.
Mm.
If Julian wants to talk about it, he can talk about it, and I'm fine with it. Not everything is this salacious, crazy that y'all think it is. Sometimes things are just what they are, and they move the on. Also, I understand that leaves people to make up bull narratives like we're downsizing, which is insane and hilarious when we're hiring more people, but that's just what it is. I respect Julian. I like Julian. I consider Julian a friend. I consider him a coworker. I consider him all of the things that y'all were joking about before. And I would never get on a pod and just tear him apart because we had some differences in our business that happened. Like sometimes this is how business goes. So why does every theory have to go with some negative?
I
Why
can
can't
ask.
there ever be a theory that hey, this split, everyone respects each other?
Julian, he didn't seem to take it well. He was on Spaces, not Spaces. He was on Instagram saying it was crazy that they didn't even they just relegated me to a 20-second clip, and he didn't take it well, like what you're trying to present. So there's something beneath the surface.
But
Second
why
send
why
off
why
though.
can't we just split and not speak about it because everybody respects each other? Of course there's disagreements, but I can't understand why you guys don't understand the concept of hey, everyone respects each other here. And yes, it was an emotional thing. We know what Julian was to the pod, but why can't we just quietly not discuss it because it's personal? Okay, but what if it was out of respect for that person? How would you have done it? So
Mm,
I guess this is my question to, and I fully understand why
choosing
everyone
buttons.
has questions, and you guys should have questions. That's what makes podcasting so valuable. People are invested in it. I'm asking you guys, tell me how you would have handled that.
I think I would.
Tell me what you would have said. Or sometimes podcasts, even though they're very much entertainment, they're businesses. And that's not something you do. Because you've seen when businesses that are podcasts break down, you scream at empty chairs. Sometimes it's better to just quietly go our separate ways. I would go on Julian's new podcast tomorrow if he would have me. If he wouldn't, all good. I with Julian as a human being. I'm just so curious, as you guys, the experts that know nothing about what happened, I want you guys to tell me what you would do.
And
Sure.
why wouldn't he? You're saying if he would have me, but why wouldn't he? That's the thing.
If he's launching something, that would be his business and his decision to make. Do you not see that point now?
No, I
My
feel
my
like
my
if it was
podcast
a
is Maul
good
and I's decision.
severance, then it wouldn't be a question
I just said I would go on it.
if he would allow you.
Yeah, I don't just run up on people's podcasts. I'm just not gonna get into it because you guys don't know
Wait,
what you're
ask him.
talking about nor running this
But
business.
that's
So,
it.
out of respect for the person you guys are talking about, I'm staying quiet. I think he's talented. I think he'll do great in anything that he does. And that's what it is. Like, that's what happens with companies and business. Things separate. Because I don't want to make content out of some real
First,
anymore.
first.
Like that's a business. When I allowed what I thought was a funny conversation with Ed and him happen a year ago, damn near to the date. I made a mistake with that of making things content when they shouldn't be content. I'm learning from my mistakes. So when it
Now,
comes to this Julian thing, it's not content. I love and respect him for real. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I hope he does everything that he wants to do. If he needs anything from me, I'm here. It's no real bad blood on my side, and I don't think it's any on his side. I'm not going to speak for him, but I really don't think it's any bad blood.
Demons.
I'm not about to make content out of some when I made the mistake and allowed Eden and Julian to make some content about something that ended up being a split and some real business employees. I'm learning. I'm learning as I go. And I know everyone in podcasting and content has to pretend like they're the master CEO. No, I'm learning. I'm still learning. And I'm not going to do that to Julian at all. So, yes, you got this send off that you didn't want, but that's the send off I'm giving you. And that's what it's going to be.
All right, so Rory went on Twitter Spaces a couple days ago and talked about where everything stands with Julian and why he made the decision to go the route he did as far as his exit from the Rory and Mal podcast. And overall, it's been very confusing because Rory and Mal don't want to say exactly what happened. And you kind of understand why they don't feel like they should. They're refusing to make it content. But in sharp contrast is Julian. Julian is on the other end of the dial, alluding to some things behind the scenes, his podcast, something wrong with the pod, doing good numbers. Obviously, that could be the breakup effect. Every time you leave a pod, your number goes up as far as views. So he did like 55,000, which is a good amount. That's typically what Rory and Mal do on YouTube when they release their pod. And Julian did address it to some extent, which is why I think the views were up. As to if that will sustain, nobody knows. Though, if you look at what happened with Rory and Mal, they were doing like 700,000 their first episode. It's likely he's going to experience a 25-50% drop off. And that's not bad if Julian's doing like 10 to 20,000 views per episode, but maybe he figures it out and is able to break the mold of people who can't sustain after a breakup. But back to what Rory said, he largely said that he doesn't want to make it content. Threw in a couple allusions to Joe when he talked about how Joe fired Rory and Mal performatively on air in episode 437. And I do kind of wonder what happened for Rory and Mal to make this decision, because they said that it was a business decision, and a lot of people speculate it's because Julian asked for more money. But Rory and Mal are taking this stance that they have money, they're fine, everything's good, and everything is copacetic. But Julian looks severely hurt by what happened, whereas Rory and Mal are trying to just move on very quickly. But fans speculate. I think people often forget that podcasting is like the most intimate experience in terms of the way we engage with entertainment. You spend hours and hours of time listening to people's stories. And it's not just stories about them talking about entertainment. These people are talking about their personal lives. You might develop a bond. I'm not talking about myself, but I'm just talking about the rabid fan base that comes with podcast audiences. And that's what we are experiencing here. A lot of folks want to see what's going on. It's like when that person at your job gets let go and nobody knows why. People are going to be invested and be like, oh, what happened to Johnny? Johnny was here for a few years. All of a sudden, I don't see him. Did he get fired? Did he choose to quit? When things aren't explained, people want to do the science. And that's just the way it goes. And I don't think this is going to end anytime soon. Speculation is still going across all communities. You now have the Rory and Mal fan base turning on Julian, saying Julian is nasty for talking about the breakup, even though he didn't really talk about the breakup to any great extent. But still, this is just like a microcosm of the JBP breakup with Rory and Mal. It was very similar. Everything, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And it was the same exact thing. Rory and Mal left the JBP. JBP fans are mad that Joe Budden fired Rory and Mal. But then Joe Budden fans are mad that people are acting like Rory and Mal were more consequential to the show than they really were. So then there's a resentment of Rory and Mal because they stole and upended a piece of the fandom that was the JBP. And now we're seeing Julian enter that resentment. I don't know where this takes both shows. I'm curious where things go. I'm going to be watching Julian's numbers, and if anything comes of that, I'm going to be doing an episode about the numbers, kind of his status as a podcast. I thought the first episode was a little bit lackluster. Thought it was way too long for being a solo pod. But, sometimes you learn as a podcaster when you try something. And the fact that Julian could even do a 1 hour plus solo pod, that's growth. That means that he's done something that Joe hasn't done. He's done something that Rory hasn't done. He's done something that Mal hasn't done. And was it good? No. But now he can kind of do some data and be like, oh, I need to change this. Oh, I can't do a pod without someone else. Or if I do a pod by myself, I got to make it shorter. So let's see where this journey takes these people. I know their relationship will never be the same, and it's sad, but this is what happens in business. This is why I love podcasting. It's a modern workforce taking place in front of our eyes and our ears. So this is why I cover the art form. But let me know what you think in the comments. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. And the full conversation of this is on Patreon audio. So that's why you should subscribe. Because if you had my Patreon, you would have heard this audio in its totality previously. With that said, this is Danny from The Stop. Peace.